Hey, Patrick. How's it going?
It's going good, Tom.
Good. So we're back, episode 3 of the CJ build, the CJ to EV build. And you've made what looks like a lot of progress, but let's kind of go through where you are right now. I see this giant item right here in the center of the screen. What exactly are we looking at here?
So one of the big problems that we faced with the conversion of the Jeep, as opposed to, say, a Volkswagen or a minibus, is the engine is going to stay where the original ICE engine was. But the big issue is there's no way to support this and the bell housing all at once. So I came up with this idea called a motor cradle assembly, an MCA. The idea here being that this will all be welded together as steel, so that once the motor is mounted in here, it will act as a single unit that will allow it to be bolted to the bell housing and the transmission, and it will act as a motor mount for the entire assembly, which replicates, or at least comes close to replicating, the way the original ICE engine was mounted between the frames.
Okay, so the MCA is going to be steel, aluminum?
Steel. It's going to be all aluminum, so 5/8 inch mounting plate here. These will be the spacers depending on how the coupler sits. So in this scenario, the coupler is going to sit here inside of this.
Okay.
And depending on how the final size of this works out, we'll adjust these shims or spacers to accommodate that.
Okay.
But this will be permanently mounted to the base, giving a structural integrity straight through the base all the way to the mounting points between the frames.
Okay, so what are you going to show us today? And so we're going to put that motor into the MCA that you have here at some point, and then you're going to show us kind of how the other couplers and the other things that would go into this bell housing, how they are eventually going to go together. We'll sort of get an exploded view for the people who understand this stuff, to be able to see how the components are going to kind of go together.
That's right. And then what we'll do after that is once it's assembled, we'll use our cherry picker and we'll actually put it into the Jeep itself for fitment purposes.
Okay.
So let's start maybe just with reviewing all the pieces.
Okay, yeah, let's start from the motor forward.
So right now the motor has these adapter plates on it. The idea being that you have to have some way of mounting the motor to whatever you're going to have it to. The way these particular motors were made is they were made to sit this way as if they were used by pumps.
Okay.
So this only has a keyway right here that would hold the opposite keyway for the coupler. Okay. So when the motor spins, it's going to spin the coupler. But we have to mount this somehow to whatever we're going to move forward on. So I've come up with a way to have a permanent mount here. And the reason this has to be exact is because this center has to match the center of where the shaft is going to come through, which would be the transmission input shaft.
Okay.
So, with that being said, I already have done the math off camera, and I know that I need at least this much spacing to accommodate the coupler. So now, once again, I'll put the coupler back on just to show you how.
And this is all going to be aluminum as well, correct?
Correct. Each of these will be aluminum as well.
All right.
We want to maintain the benefit of having the light weight.
Okay.
The other reason that we can go aluminum is there's no shear force this direction, but the shear force is in a rotational direction, and the aluminum doesn't need to be steel. It can all stay aluminum.
Okay.
So then moving from here, which will be the motor, we're going to mount that to here, and just to review how this is going to work, this is the coupler that's going to go here.
Yeah.
At some point it will come through here.
Right.
And it's going to join this. This is the flywheel.
Okay.
So for purposes of just showing you an exploded view, we'll put one bolt in it. Flywheel bolt. And I'll put this up on this little spacer, leaning it against here. The next thing, if we were going to assemble everything that's going to be inside the bell housing, would be this is the flywheel.
Let's see the front of that. What is that?
This is the actual clutch. These
Okay.
are the ferrous surfaces that sit between the flywheel, and this is going to be rotating.
Okay.
Imagine this is the transmission input shaft.
Yeah.
This will be rotating, and this is connecting to the pilot bushing here. So
Okay.
it would sit like this.
Right.
And this is what would spin like this. This is made of the same stuff as your brakes.
Okay.
And I'm going to turn it a little bit like this.
Asbestos, you mean?
It is, yeah, it's the good asbestos. So once this is attached to this and the pressure is on this, using this, which is the pressure plate for the transmission,
Okay.
that means that
These are the things that came in the transmission.
Correct. Would
of
you
the
hold this
C-
for just a second?
Certainly.
just hold it just like that, and I'll back this off just so you can see an exploded view. So when this has pressure on this, it acts as a single unit, and the coupler is attached to the motor. It would spin all of this, and this is the transmission.
Okay.
So with no pressure on it, it literally spins just like that. When you put your clutch in, it spins free. When you release your clutch, which is releasing these, it comes out like that, and then there is no pressure. Once the pressure is applied, it acts as a unit, causing the power to go from the motor all the way back through the transmission transfer case.
Okay.
All right, so now we're only going to do a fitment test. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this out of here, and then we're going to mount this to here, and then this to there.
Okay.
All right, so Tom, why don't you go ahead and start lifting up the motor.
All right.
We're using our cherry picker.
I'm going slow,
You're doing great.
just to make sure we don't.
All right. A little bit more. A little bit more. All right, stay there. All right, now let's mount this.
I'm going to lower it now.
Not yet, not yet. Let me get a bolt on.
And what do you feel like it's going to cost you to fabricate this MCA out of aluminum?
I don't know. Aluminum's rather expensive right now, but it shouldn't be horrible. Almost all of it is easily purchasable at a metal shop.
Yeah.
So now that we've assembled the spacers to the MCA,
Yeah.
we're going to lower it down,
Okay.
and that way it'll give us a stable base, and then we're going to attach the bell housing to it. So if you would lower that down slowly. All right, so for the purposes of this, we're only going to mount this in the exact position, and then we're going to mount the entire unit in the Jeep.
Okay.
These are guide dowels. These are common on almost all cars. What they do is every car is a different one, but in my case, my center is based on the bottom of my guide dowels. Same as the ICE engine that we took out, same as every other car in the world that has a transmission. The principal reason for these things is you have to have concentricity. So the center shaft has to be straight all the way through to your transmission.
Okay.
So now we're just going to mount this here, and this side here. We'll use our dead weight hammer. All right,
Who
and
doesn't
now-
love a good dead weight hammer, really?
Everybody loves a good dead weight hammer, Tommy.
Now you're going to attach some bolts. And how many bolts go in this thing? 5, 6, 107?
No, this one has about 7 or 8 bolts, but we're only going to go 3 of them for
Okay.
now. Okay, I'm going to come around. I'm going to attach the bolt on your side.
All right. Am I in your way?
Ah, you're in great shape.
There's a pillar in your way, that's for sure. Nice. It's been fun. How many, so it's been a couple weeks since I was here last, and you've basically been doing, how many different MCA prototypes did you have to go through to get
This
to
is
this
probably
point?
my 6th. I think I wrote on here that this is model number 6.
Okay.
I'm pretty happy with that.
All right. Okay, so
All
now
right, so now we have a finished assembled piece. So we have a motor,
yeah,
we have an adapter, we have an MCA,
yeah,
and we have an attached bell housing.
very exciting.
So I think what we're going to do for just a minute is we're going to go off camera. I'm going to mount the motor to the MCA in the back, which will let it pick this up and not have it fall apart.
I'm going to move the camera over here to show the people what you're talking about right there.
This is going to end up going on here, just like this.
Okay.
And that will tie the motor to the MCA and no longer allow it to have 120 pounds of unsupported weight.
Right.
Once this is attached, this is then becoming an entire unit.
Okay.
Just like as if it were an ICE engine.
Okay.
And then from here, we're going to lower it to the ground, move our cherry picker, pick it back up, and we're going to assemble it, put it on the Jeep, attaching it to the transmission, and see if it fits.
Cool.
So if you could maybe take a break, we'll attach this and we'll be right back. All right, so we're back. What we did was we attached the bell housing and the MCA unit together. We're using our cherry picker to hoist it up. And the goal here is to take our fully assembled MCA with bell housing and attach it to the transmission. Mostly just as a dry fit to see how our batteries, which will rest on these temporaries, will fit in relationship to the MCA fully mounted to the transmission. So our goal now is we're going to lift this up carefully. We're going to use our cherry picker and slide it over here and mount it to the back of the transmission or the front of the transmission input shaft. Nothing's inside. It's going to be free and open for now, just to have a dry fit. All right, Tom, if you would help me out here, why don't you go ahead and start lifting up the MCA with the bell housing. Keep going. A little bit more. All right, Tom, if you would start to push the cherry picker forward slightly. Keep going. I'm going to steer it over this way. All right, keep coming. All right, slow down, slow down. All right, oh, okay, let's leave it just like that, Tom. If you would begin to lower it. You know what, Tom, it might be a good idea if we changed angles for the people who are watching this so that they could see it as we attach it. 1 second, guys. All right, so we're back. All right, Tom, if you would be so kind as to begin slowly lowering the cherry picker so that we can get it below the temporary firewall. A little bit more. Slowly, slower. A little bit more. All right, would you pause it there, Tom? And now begin to move the entire cherry picker forward for me, just to get a little tighter. A little bit more. All right, now, Tom, if you would lower it down a little bit, we're pretty close. Super slow. A little bit more. A little bit more. All right, stop there. Let's go ahead and bring it forward a little bit more. Bring the entire cherry picker forward. Okay. A little lower now, Tommy. Hold it, hold it. Don't move. All right, I'm going to come around this side so I can see if I can adjust the angle. Let's see if we can pull this a couple inches this way. All right. All right. Okay. First bolt in. Second transmission bolt in. All right, Tom, would you lower that down a little bit? Let's see if it'll take weight. All right, give me about another inch. That's it, stop there, lock it there. This will be our protection. And that's it. That is it. That's the first dry test of the motor fully inside the motor carriage assembly, the bell housing adapter plate attaching completely to the bell housing attaching directly to the transmission attaching directly to the transfer case in a stock Jeep CJ7. All right, let's come back here with the camera real quick, Tom. I'm going to grab an aluminum rod. Actually, you're going to grab it from right behind you. No, I have one right here, Tom. So we're going to use this now to see how our battery, which is supposed to ride on top of this, is going to work. Looks good for the front, but it looks like it's a little off here. What do you think, Tom?
You want a second one?
Yeah, good idea.
I mean, my question when you showed this to me initially was like having the batteries that close to the top of the motor, and what the impact of the potential heat off the motor could have to your overall cooling. But
so the bottom of the motor will be the original Tesla frame for the battery. Air will move this way up against the bottom of the frame of the battery and then be pushed back down, which is a normal way for engines to work in this configuration. So once the fenders are attached, it will funnel the air downward. The motor will sit here and the batteries will sit here. Once the batteries are on here, they'll have their own cooling through liquid cooling. Okay. There'll be a small radiator here for the liquid cooling that'll control both the back batteries and the front batteries. But obviously this dry test tells us, and it is resting exactly where it should be, that we're going to have to raise these battery support walls at least an inch.
Okay. And does the motor need to be cooled?
The motor, this particular motor does not need to be cooled.
Okay.
But if you would reach behind you, Tommy, and grab one of those wooden...
I was going to see what one of those Tesla, the frames that you cut from the old thing, maybe we could see what that would look like in position as well.
I like that idea, but here is a graphic representation of it. Okay. I feel like this isn't going to fall, hopefully. Famous last words.
Always, yeah.
All right, Tom, would you grab one more? These are exact replicas of Tesla S and X batteries. All right, and now if you'd grab two more. All right, and we're going to set that here. The other one's going to set here. This is going to be our hot sides here. Our electrical is going to be on this side. Our wet side is going to be over here. And it looks pretty good. I think the same measurement's going to have to happen down there. We're going to have to raise up the wall of the battery supports at least an inch. But I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah,
it's great. I'm going to take the camera off of here and kind of come around this side and show people kind of what we're talking about. And so you can see the tolerances is like very, very tight.
That's what we got to make. We're going to increase this wall so we can have that more.
And that's without the metal frame from the S and X that you cut up, that you're going to use and cut up into pieces. So
it would still span though across
I guess it
here.
would be the same, right?
Yeah.
But it's basic. It's kind of touching in a lot of ways.
Right. So let's go ahead and what we'll do is we'll add an inch here to this wall.
All right.
That'll lift up the batteries slightly, an inch higher, and it'll increase our center of gravity a little bit, but not horribly so. Each battery weighs about 60 pounds. So two batteries, 120, so 240 pounds. Not horrible. It's still not even close to the approximate 780 pounds of the original ICE motor. So what did I say? 60 and 60, 120, 240 plus 120 for the motor. So that's 360. We're still less than half the original weight of the ICE engine. Let's say we have another 100 pounds of container fabrication bits and pieces. We're still probably under 300 pounds below the original ICE engine.
And in terms of like cross support, right? So you have support, these things will be welded to the frame or bolted to the frame.
Bolted actually to the battery box. The battery box will be removable.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. These wooden things at the bottom will be bolted to the frame. The battery box will sit on top of that, and that will provide and be attached, I'm assuming, by some L brackets or something.
Well, it'll be welded. It'll be welded assembly.
Welded to it, okay. And that'll provide the cross member sort of strength to it.
Well, the
Instead of
biggest
having
issue,
to attach like an additional bracket.
oh no, there'll be an additional. Part of
Okay.
the base of the battery box will actually be structural. So these two mounts will actually be fitted correctly and made of metal, and will have a full-time support between them, almost like a bottom to it that'll be structural.
Okay.
That way, if the Jeep ever flips or has a head-on collision, we want to keep these from exploding out of the hood. Also, too, this will stop any forward motion of these batteries. So we'll have these welded here in the battery box, bolted to the base. All these will be, of course, made of metal, probably aluminum, and they'll be attached to the frame in the original motor mount bolts. So we don't have to re-drill or create or even create new holes in the frame, because you don't want to drill your frame if you don't have to.
Right.
You know that, right, Tommy?
I do, of course, yeah.
All right, so I think that proves that we are in great shape here. I'm going to start to remove these just to show you what it looks like as Tommy's moving around. And this is the first dry fit of the whole thing. So the next thing we want to do is we want to have our coupler finished being made so that we can go from a dry fit to an actual fit. So the coupler is going to be sitting inside of here, and we want to have our new design sent off and manufactured. That way the next attempt at this actually could be live, where the drive could, if it was electrified, spin. That'll give us a lot of comfort that our dimensions are correct.
And would we be able to make that spin without necessarily attaching the battery packs to it? Like, could we just attach an electrical, like a power cord or something to it?
It's a great question.
Thank you.
If you had a DC motor, unlike this AC induction motor, you can do that with just a regular 12-volt battery. But there's no way to do that with an AC induction. You actually have to use the inverter to control the entire thing.
Okay.
So we don't have the ability to have an easy way of just mounting it and then turning it on just to have the fun of watching the wheel spin. To actually get that to demo, we have to have all the pieces together. We don't have to have all of the wood replaced with metal, but we do have to have all the electrical run and all the batteries in the safe position and all the electrical attached.
All right.
Then we can do a live spin test.
All right.
Unfortunately, that's the downside of the AC motor. It doesn't make it easy to demo, but the upside of the AC motor is all the things you get with that in this induction configuration.
So generally happy about how it fits, what it looks like, what you're seeing. No big surprises for you in terms of like different thinking and having to change stuff. So, right?
So far, I'm very happy with it. I wish I was a little bit farther along, but the regular work job is keeping me, busy doing other things. I would say at this point, we're going to take this MCA apart, take it to a fabricator, maybe one of those race fabricators that does a lot of these types of things for non-electric conversions, have them build it. Once that's done, that will be a huge movement forward that will have steel all the way from transmission to the tip, and that'll give us real comfort when we start to build our battery boxes that need to have support.
Okay. So we can take it apart, and that'll be the next time we come up here and see your progress. Maybe we'll see that final fabricated MCA. Is there anything else that's going to happen sort of before then?
Probably two things. We need to have our front battery box finished, and we need to have our rear battery box finished.
Okay.
Those two things are structural, so the rear battery box actually will bolt into the gas tank original location. Has to be fully supported and built, and completely dry. Batteries have to be dry. The same is true of the front one. We're going to, as you mentioned before, we're going to take our Tesla chopped bottom.
It's over there.
And we're going to finish building the sides of it, making sure it's fully enclosed, and then that will complete the front one. So manufacturing of the rear tank / battery box, manufacturing of the front battery box, converting our MCA to a finished metal MCA. Those are the three next big things that we should probably do at the same time.
All right. Thanks, Patrick.
You're welcome.
It's looking great.
Thank you.
Everybody's very, very excited to see how it goes. So, all right. We'll see you next time.
Very good.